Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock. And I wish I could do this fucking intro without having to burp, like, right when we start. It's like...
Well, I was holding that in, that cough. So
your cigarette cough.
What sucks is when I'm, like, talking and holding in the cough, my voice starts to, like, kind of waver and crack, and it sounds like I'm going to cry or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's a cough.
It just pisses me off, because we were talking for, like, 20 minutes, and I'm just sipping on a soda the entire time and feel fine. And then the moment it's like, action, it's like, then just, like, in my fucking stomach. I'm a big bloaty...
We just need to roll with it. Like, we've joked before about being like one of those radio type shows with all the stupid sound effects. Be like, welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. Honk, honk, wooga.
Welcome to the Bloaty Boys Podcast.
It's Fart and Belch here.
Now you've said that, that's going to be our actual nickname. That's all people are going to know us by.
I like flatulence and belch because then you can shorten it to just flatch and belch. I'm flatch and I'm belch.
Flatulence is like that makes it sound very noble to me. Sounds like a English lord.
If you will excuse me, I do believe I've got an air of flatulence.
I'm going to go behind the bush and toot now.
Toot. I always liked that as a fart term.
Yeah, it's very dainty.
Yeah.
For something that's inherently destructive.
Yeah, mine definitely aren't dainty. Like
I haven't tooted since 1992.
The year of the toot.
Yeah. Since then, it's all just been it's been weaponized by the government.
The UN, you've got the UN's notice. They periodically send investigators to check.
Yeah, me and like North Korea are just having a fight over who can be the biggest like international shithead, and I think I'm ahead right now. I've been testing my farts in international waters a lot these last 3 months.
That's what's driving those orcas crazy. That's why they're attacking boats.
Probably.
They're like, make it stop. Yeah. Well, keep it up because I think that's hilarious.
I love that shit. That makes me so happy.
Especially because it's like easy to sit here and be, be like, yeah, go orcas, and that's what I'm gonna say, go orcas. But also, I can imagine being on a boat that's suddenly getting like charged by orcas and being like, holy fuck, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why.
I would be, if I was on a boat that got attacked by orcas, I would be scared shitless and wondering what did I do to deserve this. But this is war, man. We have fucked with orcas so much as a species.
I was going to say, that's the crux of it, is you'd have to just come to the acceptance that you personally didn't do anything to deserve this. You, as a human species, definitely did.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to be thrilled about it when they decide to flop on land and kick down my door and put a shotgun in my mouth. But I do understand where it comes from. And I just hope they know before they fucking blow me to shit that I love them and I support them in their...
Yeah, I get it. I'm not even telling you not to pull that trigger. I just wanted you to know that I understand.
So,
well, we all thought it would be dolphins, but it's orcas, so...
Dolphins are they're psychopaths. Like, this is calculated. Yeah. Like, orcas they've had enough. Dolphins may attack humans, but it's just because they have the bloodlust.
That's the thing with dolphins. It's 9 times out of 10 that's like they'll protect you, and people are like, oh, look, they're protecting the swimmer from the sharks.
Yeah.
And then that 10th time they're like, we're just going to, like... impale you with our snout and go like all the way through you.
Yeah, like you're gonna just have a fucking their fucking whatever their beak. I don't know what they call it, but like they have some fucking nose, and that is a perfect impalement weapon.
And trigger warning, but there's been people raped by dolphins, there's that too.
To be fair, I think a lot of you come into contact with a lot of animals, and most of them will. If you're there long enough, they'll probably try some shit.
Yeah.
I think the only ones smart enough and really just not interested in us as a people are like elephants.
And cats.
A jungle cat would try to rape you.
That's true.
I think.
Elephants, do you remember that story? It was about a year ago, I think, about... I forget what she did. There was an old woman in, like... I don't think it was India, but somewhere over that way. It might have been India. She did something to this elephant, and it ended up, like, finding her, like, 50 miles away in her village and trampled her to death.
Jesus
which
Christ.
I'm laughing at. But where it gets really good... is then a couple days later, they had her funeral, and the fucking elephant found that and stamped her again. It's a true story. Look it up. It's fucking crazy. I forget what she did. I forget what she did, but it was one of those things where you like read what she did to the elephant, and you're like, I kind of get it. Like,
yeah. Oh, they're smart as hell, and with intelligence comes the ability to hold a grudge.
Yeah.
But, like, fuck, dude, I don't think we even need to go into your topic today. That's the story this week.
Yeah.
One time an elephant crushed a woman and then did it again.
At her funeral.
Yeah.
That's why I was laughing when I said it crushed her, because
And
it's like,
pissed on her
that's
grave.
just straight revenge there. It's not that funny. It's just like, it's kind of amazing. It's like, I did that story a while ago that I kind of like rewrote it, as fiction, but it was based on a real story about the tiger hunter in Siberia.
Yeah.
That happened to. He shot the tiger and it tracked him for days and then ambushed him when he thought he was finally safe. Got back to his cabin and nope. So, animals do that, but the elephant one was great because it was like the tiger doing that, but leaving the body for the friends to bury, and then at the funeral, just before they lower the body, like jumping out and mauling it again.
Yeah.
That's basically what this elephant did.
Well, it's like, and elephants are another one, like orcas, where it's like we could have been best friends with that species, but we fucked it up, And so now it's like, again, when they learn to strap a fucking, like, one of those machine gun ammunition belts to their fucking trunks, then, like, I'll understand where that comes from.
Yeah. And it all stems from humanity, like as people, we're insecure. We constantly have to assert our dominance and prove that we're the intelligent species at the top of the...
Or just decide, like, that fucking horn that thing needs to live is like, yeah, that should be mine.
That's the only thing we can make piano keys out of.
No, God, dude, seriously. It's like, it's a fascinating time. You and me have talked about, like books and shit that have touched on like the old days of whaling and stuff, and it's like, well, they needed those for oils and shit, and it's like, no, they didn't. That was just the first thing they found, and then they built their whole fucking town around it.
Well, and it was the easiest one to exploit quickly for money. As that turns out, that's a very common theme throughout humanity.
Yeah. And like that is an interesting period in the processes.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite to read about, but not because I enjoy whaling or think it's great that we did whaling. It was interesting, but it's
interesting.
It
was also a fucking check we wrote, and now they're coming to cash it. Mm-hmm. And it's our ass.
Yeah, that's
now.
the thing. We weren't even whaling orcas, but they saw what we did, and they're like, "You're not doing that to us, fuckers."
No, we were worse to them. At least then, that's like kind of a resource, and you can, in a fucked up way, wrap your head around. Like, okay, well, it's they need fucking candles apparently. With orcas, we're just like, we're gonna make you do a flip.
That's true.
Beat the shit out of us. You should be
pretty happy. This cage or this aquarium that you're in is 4 times the size of your body, so you can do a full circle in here.
That's the one thing I'll ask is like, just start with SeaWorld.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I think SeaWorld did this weird thing where everybody now, like, or at least for a while, was picturing orcas as like your buddies. Like, you can pet them, and they're these cool whales, and like you see them in the wild, and they're awesome. It's like, I think I'd rather be in the water with a shark than with an orca, because sharks generally leave you... I really don't want to be in the water with either.
Yeah.
But But generally, sharks will leave you alone. Orcas are fucking... And if you ever watched... I was watching a nature documentary recently about... it's just nature in general up in, like, the northern hemisphere, Alaska and... Antarctica. Anywhere where the orcas are, one of the
south.
areas. Ice, yeah. No, ice north.
Ice north.
But it was showing you these orcas hunting this seal, and holy fuck, it was terrifying. And like the seal managed to like barely beat out the orca to get up onto like a ice chunk, like a pretty good size, you know, not just even like the size of a bus, but like a pretty decent sized chunk of ice. And it was trying to catch its breath, and you know, it was half dead. Like, you know how animals, if they're running for their lives, will basically run themselves to death. And it was kind of right there where you could tell it was just out of energy. Yeah. And then the orcas start doing this game where there was one on each side, and they'd basically start teeter-tottering this thing to rock the thing more and more.
They're pretty sadistic.
Yeah, and smart. Yeah. Like you said, I wouldn't put it past... If you're swimming and you see an orca and it's coming after you, just because you got to the land and got in your car and drove home, you're not safe.
Yeah, and then you
hear a knock on the door, don't fucking answer.
And the orca peeks up above your back seat.
Right. Like, why is my back suspension on my car dragging? Fuck.
That would be a great end to a horror movie. Like, not even a horror... You wouldn't even know it's a horror movie until that happens. Like, it's just a story about a guy in nature.
It's teen beach summer until the very end, yeah.
And then he, like, starts driving home, and then an orca just appears from the back seat, and... You don't even see what it does. You just see the car swerve and then crash into, like, a tree.
Right.
Credits.
I don't get it. There's a blowhole print on the gun in the back seat.
Yeah. Yeah, like Jeff Bridges to basically just play the same cop he was in what was that movie? I'm forgetting it. He was in a movie that looked a lot like a No Country for Old Men ripoff initially. Yeah. And it was actually fucking really damn good.
Yeah, I don't think he does a lot of bad movies.
No, this movie was great. Too bad
he seems
I
pretty
forgot
selective about his roles, but yeah. Anyway, I do have I don't know why I'm interrupting this. It's probably the most interesting conversation we've had for a while, and my topic's not that long. But I do have one.
Okay.
So
I'll allow it.
Have we even explained at this point to the first-time listener that our show is not about orcas? Or whatever we even first started talking about.
This show, if you haven't heard us before, it's a show where we tell each other stories, and they can be about anything, but we've really got away from that this year, and now we just ramble the fuck on until about 20 minutes, and then we're like, oh shit, we have to do the show proper.
Here's a creepypasta. No, I managed to avoid... I was very close to that. But I got a real topic that I was finishing my notes when you joined the Discord channel.
Well, you and me, I think, are starting to get into our... It's the closest thing to competition we've had since we were racing each other's times and trials. But now it's just who will blink first and go with a creepypasta. After not having
And if
done
you don't
so
go
in a
with
while.
the creepypasta, who can wait to the longest, like next week you'll have an actual topic, but you'll be typing the notes as we're doing the show. You'll be like, hold on, let me write this paragraph. Yeah. Okay.
And then read it to you.
That'd be interesting.
That would suck. Because I rewrite a paragraph 4 times.
Okay. Yeah.
So what do you got?
On the night of July 30th, 1916, 2 Germans silently rowed a boat full of explosives towards Black Tom Island along the Jersey shore of the Upper Bay. I probably didn't even use the terms right. People from Jersey and New York are like, hey, it's called this and that. But whatever.
Is that your Jersey?
Black Tom Island is technically in New Jersey, and you can basically throw a football from it to Ellis Island. So if that gives you that kind of an idea, that general area of New York / New Jersey, New York. Black Tom Island was like the most New Jersey thing to exist at the time, and by that I mean it was a man-made island. built by piling up refuse around an existing rock. So basically there was like a rock called like Black Tom Rock that was a shipping hazard, and they're like, let's just pour trash around it until it's got you can walk on it.
That's just recycling. It's a new thing to walk on.
Yeah.
That's not garbage. That's new material to walk on.
Yeah, it was described as very unpleasant. Now, it was built well before 1916 when our story starts here, but yeah, so it wasn't like they were bringing in the good dirt from upstate. But I guess you have to do something with your refuse and your like building. You know, there was quite the boom in the urban environment at that time there in New York / New Jersey.
That time in the world.
The Lehigh Valley Railway Company took possession of the island, and they had connected it to the mainland via a causeway and a railroad. The island itself served as a munitions depot and featured a number of warehouses and piers, which on that particular night were loaded with tons of munitions destined for Europe. The estimated number was 2 million pounds of explosive material. So yeah, they were hopping.
Yeah.
So if you're better at history than me, you probably already realize this, but in 1916, Europe was 2 years into the First World War. But at that point, the United States was still officially neutral. Mm-hmm. However, as a neutral party, munitions manufacturers were allowed to sell their munitions overseas. It's like, hey, we're not a part of this war, but we'll profit from it.
Officially, our stance is we'll take your money.
Right, which is the American, like I think that's on the dollar bill.
Yeah.
We'll take your money. And before you go feeling too patriotic, the sales were limited to the Allies, mostly due to the Royal Navy's blockade of Germany, not because of some like moral righteousness. It wasn't like we're neutral, but we're going to help the Allies. It was we can't sell to Germany, but we're going to sell to Russia and England and France and whoever. Still, Germany didn't really like American bombs being used against them, which is why 2 Germans and a boatload of TNT were now paddling their way towards Garbage Island. There was also a third saboteur who, with a pocket full of cigar-shaped bombs, cleverly known as cigar bombs, who simply walked into the depot. Like, so you got these guys like rowing a boat, and then the third guy's like, I'm just going to walk, guys. Because apparently there wasn't any actual security at Black Time Island.
Yeah. It's like Walmart. They think you're a customer.
Well, I'm sarcastic a lot on this show, but there really was not. I mean, they technically had some watchmen, I guess, but like there was really no security. Despite the huge like quantities of dangerous, valuable munitions, there wasn't even a fence or anything. Like you could just walk on up, which made the German operatives' missions exceptionally easy. So the 2 men in the boat set their charges on barges. I think that was like the name of their like Operation Charges on Barges. And among the warehouses. And the cigar bomb man set cigar bombs. And then the 3 simply walked away. And by that I mean they probably fucking ran like hell. Because they knew what they were doing, and they knew how much they knew what was in the warehouses.
It's probably really one of those missions where like you probably do just stroll away, and then like as you're walking, it's like I had to have fucked that up. There's no way that could have been that easy.
Right? Well, and I didn't, of course, put this in my notes, but I kept like kind of sidetracking myself. We talked last week, and me and you have talked off air. I've been watching The Sopranos, so of course my mind currently is in organized crime. And organized crime still existed, back then.
It was arguably the heyday.
I mean, probably, yeah. It's certainly more so than the 90s when Rico came and fucked it all up. Thanks, Rico, for putting crime in its place. So I have to wonder before this, like, how many, like, gangster type people were just like walking in and be like, I'll take this bomb and this bomb and some of these bombs.
Hey, Don, is that a cigar?
Like, we've read about how these gangsters like to, like, blow up each other's cars and stuff. And it's like, well, here's how they got the fucking explosives. Nobody fucking watched them. They were just like, here's a pile of them. And they're not secret. Everybody knows it's here. But we're not going to watch over them. Yeah. Like, it just fucking blew my mind to read, like, how lax the security was. Yeah.
It's like a yard sale for shit that's not yours. Like, one guy, well, you're just, like, kind of reading the paper. If somebody asks, you don't even look up to see what they want to buy and just be like, it's $5.
Yeah, $5. Look, I'm trying to pick horses for the horses races.
For the horse chug.
Yeah. Whatever they called the...
No, it's the event where the horse whichever horse drinks the most wins.
I like that. You know that game where you're supposed to like chug a beer, then put your head on like the end of a baseball bat and spin in circles, and then run like whatever. Yeah, it's really dumb.
Yeah, I have a game like that where you drink a lot and then like you have your friend hit you with a baseball bat.
Yeah, similar thing. Yeah. But now I'm picturing like feeding a horse a bunch of alcohol, making the horse spin around a baseball bat in circles a bunch, and then the horse races start. Like, I know that you're not a huge fan of horse races, and I know why. And you're not wrong. It's not very.
Well, they're
not very good to the animals.
That could be kind of fun.
Yeah, if you're gonna be bad, if you're gonna physically make the animals compete in an unhealthy manner, at least make them drunk.
Yeah, just make like the jockeys have to run away from the horses.
I was gonna say still strap jockeys to them, but now the horses are completely out of control. The jockeys are just there for comedic effect because they're just going to be flapping around And of course you got to make the jockeys drunk too. If the horses are drinking, the jockeys got to drink.
But attach the jockeys underneath the horse.
Yeah, like
and
that in tights.
And they have to hold on, and if you let go, you lose. Meanwhile, you're just getting kicked in the head.
I don't know if I'd want to be strapped to the bottom of a drunk horse. Imagine the pee.
Well, most of them would probably just lay on top of you.
That's that too.
And now we're back to animal sex.
Sex, right. Yeah, that's probably a whole genre of website out there.
I actually, unfortunately, I have seen photos of this exact thing.
Anyway, so these guys did their thing and we're just like, all right, we're leaving. Around midnight, watchmen noticed smoke and discovered numerous fires. Fearing an explosion, many of the smarter men ran away. But others stayed and called the fire department and attempted to put out the many different blazes. So with nearly 2 million pounds of explosive material stored across the site, there were a lot of areas of concern for the crews on the ground. Among them was the Johnson Barge number 17, which was loaded with over 50 tons of TNT and more than 400 cases of detonating fuses. Which sounds like a lot to me. It could be a little, I don't know. I'm not an explosive expert.
The whole thing sounds like a lot, and I've always wondered, like, in a situation where the location is, like, certainly explosive, like a firefighter, do you just say, like, well, get popcorn, because we have to wait for this shit to blow
I think
up.
A lot of them today would, because they've learned. They're like, yeah, well, I know, because I know my friend's a firefighter, and if there's a house on fire and they have a bunch of ammunition in it, they'll tend to not go in. If you say, yeah, I store, cases of ammunition in the basement, they may not go running into that blaze. Yeah. Although usually bullets, loose bullets, when they go off in a fire, they're not going to do anything. If you understand the physics of a gun, like the bullet has to have something to basically push off of when the charge happens. But anyway.
You're ruining my video game knowledge of guns where literally everything is explosive.
Explosives. Well, you're in luck, because in this situation, that's what we're talking about. So this ship that was loaded with all this TNT and detonating fuses, like if you think you'd moor a ship like that with that kind of cargo at a more secure location than the depot with literally zero security, you're clearly not familiar with the $25 in mooring fees that the company saved. So basically there was like government piers that they could have moored at that would have had way better security, but they're like, it's $25 cheaper here. We're going here. So at 2:08 in the morning, that particular investment went south very quickly when the barge became the epicenter of one of the biggest explosions to ever happen on U.S. soil to this day.
Like, the guy behind that is like, as this is happening, he's eating like a donut, which was the last of that, what that money went to.
Yeah, right.
And just like staring at the fucking hell he's created and the donut. And if you were like me, it's like, well, it was worth it.
It was a pretty good donut, yeah. So when the ship blew, it was a hell of an explosion. Debris permanently damaged the nearby Statue of Liberty. Apparently, there's still... some of it was repaired back in, like, the...
Fuck that thing up.
One of the... I guess the torch, like, you used to be able to go up into the torch, and this is what damaged it to where you couldn't go up. And even after... I forget what year they said. I think in the 70s they replaced the torch, but they still won't let people up there. And I think there's some damage to, like, the robe or something. That's still there.
Fucking America sucks. Like...
Well,
what's the point of having a giant lady statue if you can't, like, go to the very tip top of it?
Right. Like, you can go to her, like, head, I think, like the crown or whatever. It's like, yeah, but there's a torch up there. I want to be higher.
Yeah.
And then I go higher, and I hate heights, so I'm like, why the fuck am I up here?
Yeah.
But because I can. I'm American, damn it. So anyway, yeah, it damaged the Statue of Liberty.
Like, the French made that for us, right?
Yeah.
That's a very imposing gift. Like,
it's like when somebody gets you a giant fucking painting.
Yeah.
Like, at least the Statue of Liberty is kind of okay. Like, I say kind of okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Imagine if it had been like, and leave it to the French. I'm surprised they didn't do this, and it would have been fucking epic if they did. Like, made it some, like, ugly ass, like, deformed person and say it's an impressionistic piece.
Yeah.
and you have to display it because it was a gift.
But it's like, to me, it's just that intrusive, like, here's a thing you're going to have to take care of for hundreds of years.
Yeah, and put out whether you like it or not.
And you didn't even put fucking armor on it, so I can't even blow up Trash Island without worrying how's the like statue going to take it.
Which wasn't really even that close. I mean, it was close, but it's not that close. It wasn't like they were next door. In fact, what was next door was Ellis Island.
Give us the fucking Eiffel Tower. That's the cool one.
Right. Wouldn't that have been funny? They say, haha, here it is, the statue. And we're like, can we have that instead?
Yeah, but I'd trade you.
But
if we were friends, you would trade. I'm just saying.
And that's a very American thing for us to do. I'm surprised we didn't do that. Or maybe we did. Yeah. We just leave it out of our history books because it makes us look bad. But anyway, so yeah, shrapnel damaged the Statue of Liberty. Apparently Ellis Island had to be evacuated. Like all the immigrants that were waiting to be processed there, they had to evacuate. That there was a shrapnel hit the Jersey Journal building, which must be a news building, but that building was more than a mile away, and when debris hit it, it stopped their big clock on the outside at 2:12, which made it really hard for people to tell time, but may still prove useful for like Doc Brown and Marty McFly. Like, it was a very Back to the Future image I had in my head when they're like, this thing exploded and shrapnel hit this clock and stopped it exactly at this time.
It's the shortest part of the Back to the Future movies. They just show up and a bomb goes off.
They show up at 12:11 and it's great Scott, and Marty's like, what, Doc? And he's like, poof, they get blown away. Like,
Marty,
one single piece.
Bang.
Yeah, one piece of shrapnel takes off Doc Brown's head, and Marty's now stuck in 1916.
Yeah, it just blow the fuck. It take the car out.
Yeah. Doc in the car so nobody can rebuild it, and then Marty's just like, well, fuck, I guess I got to fight in World War I now.
Yep. That's obviously. There's nothing left to do.
Right. So the main explosion, that first one, registered about a 5.5 on the Richter scale, and woke people up as far away as Philadelphia.
Well, that doesn't say much.
I was going to say they were already up.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that they even knew they reached that far is you already heard the parties, and then you heard a woo, fuck you, Statue of Liberty.
So their favorite Philadelphia horse won a race, so somebody ate its shit in celebration, and then bang.
Yeah, those streets were already on fire. The mayor came out and was like, "Oh, this is terror too."
Yeah. Oh, it's the Germans that make me eat this.
So explosions continued through the night because, of course, there was a lot of explosives, sending shells off into the sky and through roofs and windows and whatever. So, like I said, whatever you wanted to picture from your video games about ammunition, that's what was happening here. Just basically fireworks show at that point. Everybody was awake now. By the time it was done, there was a 375 by 175 foot crater, an estimated $20 million in damages, and that's in 1916 dollars.
We're just telling our European allies, look, we'll sell it to you at a discount.
We're getting there. So that would be about a little over. It was like 560 million in today's money, so $500 million. But somehow only 4 documented deaths, which is amazing because like windows were being blown out like in New York City and New Jersey and
that's gotta suck though. Like for those 4, like because you're like nobody else died. It was just us. What the fuck?
Well, and one of them was like a 10-month-old baby, so I don't know what the fuck they were doing fighting. Like, apparently there was nobody watching the munitions depot except a person who brought their fucking baby with them. Like, I didn't get any more further info than that. Like, was this a baby that, like, was a ways away that got hit by debris? Or was there a baby there for some fucking reason? Like, I don't know. But, like, one was a police officer, one was a firefighter, and one was the captain of the barge, because he sure as hell didn't survive. when the boat you're on is the epicenter of a crater that's almost like 400 feet in diameter, you tend to not survive that. But then this baby, I don't know where the baby comes in. Following the incident, police questioned 2 watchmen who had apparently lit what they called smudge pots. Apparently those were things that like keep mosquitoes away. So like I'm picturing basically citronella candles.
Yeah.
But they quickly determined that those were not the cause of the fires. So instead they called the fires and the resulting explosion an accident. Like, Yeah. There was accidental fires all over the fucking place. Like
sometimes it was like 2 a.m. It's just, the sun comes back for revenge.
I was reading a little bit about these cigar bombs. They were designed by a German, scientist, chemist.
What if I roll them up like? What if I roll this C4 up like a hot dog?
It was apparently they were metal tubes about the size of a cigar. Of course, that's where they get their name from. And the tube was like separated into 2 chambers, and like an acid was put in one side and a reactive agent in the other. And then it was sealed with wax and metal on the ends to make it airtight. But the acid would eat through the metal caps at a known rate. So like you could use different thicknesses, and you would know they're basically like time bombs. And it was very like dependable too. Like they probably had like 10-minute caps and 20-minute caps and whatever. But it said like once they go off, they sound almost like road flares. Like they just shoot off a long stream of fire out of both ends. Mm-hmm. But then it burns so hot that the lead that the tube itself is made out of basically melts away and leaves very little left. So, I mean, I would get that there would be like all these fires and like not a lot left to prove what caused it. And yeah, the other guys who wrote in TNT, but I don't even know why bring your own TNT at this point when there's 2 million pounds of it already there. Yeah. Like, well, we need something to start the TNT with. More TNT.
Yeah. To be fair, I get it. I want to be sure.
Yeah.
I want this to be as big of an explosion as you just described.
And that's just as good as a firebomb that disappears after it burns up, because nobody's going to notice a TNT charge is planted among TNT that blew up. Because I'm sure there was A, not a whole lot left anyway, and B, it'd be like, yes, we found traces of TNT at the center of this TNT barge. So anyway, yeah, they were like, yeah,
wait a minute,
accidental
this
fires.
TNT ash smells like a German.
But it was weird because everything's like, yeah, they decided it was accidental, but they kept investigating. It's like, well, good, I guess. Like, that's smart. Somebody must have realized that, like, you don't accidentally have multiple fires in multiple locations at the same time. Like, that just doesn't.
Yeah,
it's not a thing that happens. Investigators would soon turn to a Slovakian man named Michael Kristoff, which is great to me because Tara has an uncle and a cousin, because he's a junior, named Michael Kristoff. So now anytime I ever see him at a family function, I'm going to just start yelling, "You blew up Black Tom Island!" And they won't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Which nobody knows what I'm talking about ever anyway. Yeah. So that'll fit.
Yeah, I'll just have you arrested.
The funny part is, you know, they were suspecting this guy, but Kristoff would eventually fight for the United States in World War I. Like, once the United States actually was like, oh wait, we are part of this war.
Wait, we want in. Wait, we like fighting. But we forgot.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was a profit thing. I know it was, because that's kind of, it was stuff. And we'll get a little bit more to it here, although I'm almost at the end of my notes. Really, what got us into World War I and honestly World War II was that, like, Germany kept, like, attacking our shipments. You know, we were trying to make money selling munitions, right? Like, we didn't really fucking care that much, except they kept sinking our ships, and then they started attacking T-pos like this on our soil, and we were like, God damn it, I guess we'll go over there and fight.
You're interrupting commerce.
So they suspected this guy. He like I said, he ended up fighting for the United States on the side of the Allies, but he did admit to, like, holding and transferring suitcases for German operatives while the U.S. was still neutral. So he was like, yeah, I kind of helped these guys out. I didn't know what they were all about. But he definitely didn't admit to the depot thing. Like, that wasn't...
No.
He wasn't like, oh, that's what that was. That's why they asked me to set those cigars down everywhere. Nothing like that. He did tell investigators, though, that 2 of the watchmen at the depot were German spies. A United States Naval Intelligence investigation also supposedly uncovered links to an Irish far-left socialist group led by a man named James Larkin, although he denied any involvement. He'd admitted to, like, causing worker strikes and stuff at munitions factories, the kind of socialist activities that they typically are up to. But he said, no, we had nothing to do with the explosion. But it's the other typical thing that we've seen in a lot of our topics, where something happens, they don't know who did it, so we might as well accuse everybody that we don't like.
Yeah, frame every one of our enemies.
Right.
Yeah.
But Germany had been and would continue to engage in a pattern of these kind of sabotage attacks. And so it really wasn't that hard. What made it hard is, at the time, the United States didn't have any kind of, like, singular investigative, like, branch for this kind of stuff. So you ended up with a bunch of completely incompetent branches all doing their own investigations. Right, because you could get away with shit.
Yeah, like, and you and me could, like, just walk onto a crime scene like fucking Sherlock Holmes and shit, and
yeah, that's true.
Just roll with it, even though you're completely wrong. You're just like, I've seen this before. And it's like, you've never seen anything like this. Nobody's seen anything like this.
Well, this is just like that incident in Tuscaloosa.
This reminds
me nothing happened in Tuscaloosa.
This reminds me of the case when we were on a barge.
And it exploded, damaging the Statue of Liberty.
Remember
just like
when
this.
I burnt my pants with my cigar?
But anyway, so Germany had been engaging in these kind of attacks. And in the end, German intelligence officers by the names of Kurt Yankee, probably Thanky,
I like
and
Kurt
Lothar
Yankee.
Witzke.
Kurt Yankee is
Yankee.
the most American sounding thing in the world.
It's
A Lee German soldier, Kurt Yankee.
it's probably jeez, I'm dying all of a sudden. It's probably Yankee. It's Jahnke, and I don't know German well enough to know how to pronounce those kind of arrangements of letters. But him and Lothar Witzke were judged to be legally responsible for the attack. So basically, they decided like if they weren't the ones that like physically did it, they were at least the ones that like ordered it, because they were responsible for other similar attacks. As a result of having their munitions shipment blown up, Russia sued Lehigh Valley Railway Company because they were pissed.
You don't say.
Yeah. And they sued them on the grounds that they failed to provide adequate security, which is probably a pretty fair accusation.
Yep.
And they demanded that their shipment be replaced. Because I'm sure Lehigh Valley was saying, like, well, boys, I know you paid for these. I know we had them in our possession, but we didn't blow them up. What do you want us to do about it? And they're like, give us more fucking bombs, assholes. In return, Lehigh Valley sued Germany for the sum of $50 million, which is interesting to me because they said that the total damages were estimated at $20 million. And I'm assuming that includes like damages to private people's, like, because windows were broken and, like I said, the statue was damaged, and there was a ton of damage, of course, at the depot. It was obliterated. But there was a lot of damage to other people that weren't Lehigh Valley Railway. And the railway's like, this isn't fair. We should make 2.5 times what the total damages are for our pocketbooks, damn it. But, of course, their lawsuit was based on the fact that the United States at the time was neutral in the war, so you couldn't say we were it was an act of war. Well, it was an act of war, but we weren't.
It wasn't an act of
opposing
combat,
sides,
like...
right. And it was there was technically a treaty between the two countries at the time, so you weren't supposed to be doing that, you German boys.
Like, I'm not going to defend because we talked about it, like America's morality system is there is none. It's all dollars and cents.
This was 1,000% capitalism at this point on our part.
But for both world wars, you gotta Germany. Come on, man! Like think about what you're doing. Like you may not like how America's needling you, but it's a lot easier than the alternative.
Well, imagine in World War I if Germany had found a way to instead buy munitions from us instead of provoking us to join the other side.
Just hand some shit to those two guys in a boat. They got there.
Right. That's the thing, too. They're like, oh, well, the Royal Blockade, we couldn't get the stuff to Germany. It's like, yeah, but they could buy it here and then blow up the blockade from the back, I would imagine. Yeah. I'm sure if Germany wanted to do business with us, they probably could have figured out how, and it probably would have been the smarter tactical move, but whatever. So anyway, Lehigh Valley sued Germany for the sum of $50 million. And in 1939, so after World War I came to an end, the German-American Mixed Claims Commission, which sounds like an international setup to kind of reparations for the damages caused by the war. One of those deals, we're responsible for that. Yeah, we're responsible for that. They did award Lehigh Valley the $50 million. The only problem was that in 1939, a very short, angry little man named Adolf Hitler was whipping up his lovely group of Nazi boys into the next nationalism fervor. And the Nazi Party, believe it or not, had zero intention of paying an American company $50 million.
Well, and I was going to say, that is also kind of World War II kind of gets glossed over, what brought it about. But what brought about the rise of Hitler and the Nazis was really just the economic crippling
from this kind of stuff,
of Germany from World War I. And you can
Right.
say, like, well, they were responsible for it and stuff. It's like, yeah, but if you basically crumble a country's economy, you're going to be in another war pretty fucking quick. Cause,
Well, yeah, like we said, the 20 million in damages was estimated at just over $500 million in today's dollars. So, logically, if you're awarding 50 million as a result, that's over $1 billion that you're saying this country owes one private company in America for one attack. So, yeah, I mean, basically, it was them coming in and saying any money that you have whatsoever is gone. And so that's one of the things, like you say, I know a lot more about World War II, but I'm still pretty ignorant about all of it. But
it's
that's
how
it's one of the things that made it so easy for Hitler to raise the kind of nationalism that was required of that horrific episode that was to come.
It's a universal truth. Trump doesn't come into power if people are happy. Like, right. they may not know why they're unhappy, and that's why they follow evil shitheads. But that's how it happens, is like, people are in bad situations, and whoever can tell them,
that it's somebody else's fault, and we're going to fix it.
Yeah, that is your recipe for conflict and misery every time.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, long story short, they illegally were owed this money, but it wasn't going to fucking happen yet. It wasn't until 1953 that they would finally see this money. Now to the tune of $93 million, because apparently interest applies.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I had to wait, fucking 50 years almost for my 40 years for my money. I want interest.
I was going to say, you better be getting more than 50.
So they got $93 million starting in 1953. I guess the last payment was received in 1979, which coincidentally was the last year that America was great. That was the problem. we were being propped up by this one lawsuit against Germany. So that's what I'm going to run on. Make America sue Germany again.
So that wasn't enough interest.
I didn't see anything about how Russia's lawsuit turned out, but I think we're still secretly sending munitions to them, so I think it probably worked out for them.
That would be hilarious. But it's the same munitions from them.
Well, it appears what they're fighting over there with is probably about 1916 level technology. So. Yeah. Damn, they're nukes. That's the one thing that makes them scary. Because, as it turns out, everything else about how great that country and their military is was a lie.
No, I mean that's something. That's something. Though I was watching an interview with a guy who defected from North Korea, and he was a high-ranking official, and then him and his friend ran away to South Korea, and. That's
not nearly far enough, considering how evil North Korea is. He
had to swim for 8 hours and walk through a minefield. So that's probably far enough for me.
Well, but I'm just saying, that's far enough initially, but I guarantee North Korea's sending people after them.
Well, I mean, he's been in South Korea now for a couple of years and doing interviews. Yeah. I don't think they like him, but I don't think they give a shit, really.
Yeah, they might not have the resources, which I think is probably where you're going with this.
Well, it's because he's, so he was in the government and stuff, so he has a better insight. And they're asking him, if South Korea and North Korea got into a civil war in modern times, he said something that was, and maybe he's just biased because, he grew up in North Korea, but he's the people in South Korea are just... you admire their sort of national pride, but they're just we would stomp North Korea in a straight up war. It's just the nuclear weapons. And this guy is you only have to now look at this Ukraine conflict to realize where countries are stacked in terms of where they rank in terms of military power actually doesn't mean that fucking much.
Yeah.
Because it's in America, we're a fucking example of that. We thought all of our shit in the Middle East would have been done in like a couple years. And we not only did not get out in a couple years, we fucked that region up indefinitely.
Right.
And not in a way like, oh, we totally dominated that fight.
We designed it this way.
No,
it was like, well,
it's almost arguable that we lost because we left it in such a bad spot. And like that was his point, is like, yeah, you can look at like numbers and soldier to soldier, but depending on how that fight breaks out and where that fight breaks out, you never know who's going to win a war. Like,
yeah. Well, and generally, it's the people with the most to lose that are going to fight
that's the thing.
The hardest.
You tend to lean now, knowing what I know now, you would tend to lean to, well, who's being invaded,
Right.
So but, there's your pep talk for the weekend.
Yeah. So I don't really, my ending on my notes we've kind of already touched on. Like I said, like most Americans, I know a lot more about World War II than the first. I put it World War original flavor.
World War
the first
classic.
Was a lot more, classic. The first was more politically muddled. And I think given that we still have dumbasses Americans today that say things like, are you sure the Nazis were the bad guys? I think it's safe to say that America's opinions on World War I were probably more divided, or at least more like, meh, I don't know what's going on over there, and it doesn't involve me.
I mean, that's always also sort of been, like, you kind of have to take America's position into account when you talk about World War I also, which is, it was only a relative few decades before we were in a fucking really fucked up civil war that was fucking so terrible.
Oh yeah, I always forget, but I was looking through because I wanted to see the number of American soldiers that died in World War I, and so I'm scrolling through a website that lists casualties of wars, and I could be wrong, but I think the Civil War still outnumbered World War II even.
Oh yeah,
the Civil War they had us listed as 450,000 Americans killed. Of course, that makes sense because it was on our soil, so that you get civilians in there too. Where all the other wars were gracious enough to kill other people's civilians, but not our own as much.
So, like going into World War I, like I have to imagine, like there's hesitancy from that population, because even if they don't remember it, like their dads did. Like,
and it's easy to forget too that a lot of those areas, a lot of the countries over there, Germany, France, Spain, and then anything, you start to get into the UK and that kind of stuff. UK, they're pretty well defined by their island. But anyway, I guess even them, a lot of those borders and kingdoms and became countries, that was relatively, recent too, and that's my understanding is a lot more of what World War I had to do with was that still kind of that like territory struggles, and governance struggles, and who's in control of what. And so as an American, like you say, A, coming out of the Civil War, and B, being way over here, and C, it's like that one doesn't necessarily have a clear like this side's right or this side's right. It's more which side do you align with. And so for a long time, America didn't align really with either side. And like I said, we mentioned it earlier. The funny thing is, the thing that got us to pick a side were attacks, largely like this one. This one went along, this specific bombing, as bad as it was, like the resulting explosion, really turned a lot of America's opinion and said, wait a minute, Germany is probably the bad guys here.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true, and in its way. The only thing I'll say on as a critique on us is, like, as you pointed out, we are very good at pulling the "I'm not touching you" trick before every major conflict we've been in.
Yeah.
Like we fuck with people for sure.
You know what?
Without actually doing it.
I didn't realize until I started actually reading about shipwreck diving, which was relatively recently in the last couple of years. You know, we talk about World War II, and I say, oh, we know more about that. And then the common idea in America is that Pearl Harbor got us into World War II. And it is the thing that it
publicly
elicited,
galvanized everybody.
Yeah, we had to make a actual proclamation of war. So that part's not necessarily wrong. What I didn't realize is that Germany and America had been sinking each other's ships, even off the coast of America, for a long time leading up to that.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it was that, like, oh, we're neutral, but we're going to blow up your ship. And I don't necessarily...
maybe we did that.
And they weren't all warships. We were doing what they do. You know, there was a lot of cargo merchant type ships that I'm sure were carrying materials meant for war, but they were not battleships. So it's not like, oh, well, we were defending ourselves sinking submarines. Like, that happened too.
Like, we like to think in terms of, like, oh, our leaders announce we are going to war, and that's how we start war. But it's never like that. Like, by the time they're telling us we're at war, the war started probably, fucking months ago.
Right.
We're just now, like, they're tired of hiding it.
Right. Or we went one step too far, or they went one step too far. It's your analogy there, the not touching you, like the sibling type thing. That's exactly how we've entered least both the world wars.
That is our global political strategy. Like,
yeah,
that is our handbook in diplomacy. But I also like siblings. You got to be the bigger fucking man. And
we're not very good at that here.
Not us. I mean, like Germany, you shouldn't have. You can't hit your little brother. All right.
Like I said, I don't know the specifics. I'm not definitely not the world's biggest historian. I think that's clear. And I'm not an economics expert or whatever. But it really feels to me like Germany could have played their hand a lot better in World War I.
Oh yeah.
They had their hands full already, so them antagonizing us seems like it was probably not great.
Yeah, it's just a horrible idea.
Yeah. But so I don't know if they thought they were just big enough, like, we're not as scared of these Americans. And it's like, well, to be fair, if it was just you and us at the time with the distance, it would have been an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But it's like that kid that's obnoxious in school and wants to pick fights, but even though he's already getting his ass kicked by 4 people, he's like, I'll take that kid to over there too. Like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
And it's like, don't add more kids to it.
And that kid, you just happen to be like, hey, you come on too, fucko. And it turns out like that kid has actually been hoping you'll tell him.
Right. Yeah, because that's really, I think, the key is the America wanted to be involved. And they wanted to pick the side, but they wanted to look like the good guys.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's absolutely, like I said, it's shit disturbing, but then you still have plausible deniability in the PR battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so joke's on them. They poked us too much. We went over there, only lost 116,000 lives, 116,500, really.
Of course, not us. Poor people's kids.
Oh no, those were the American casualties. There was way the hell more casualties than that in World War I. But that's why, because that's the other thing too. That's why I wanted to note that number, is because we just tend to be taught, like, yeah, in both cases, World War I and World War II, it's like, yeah, it was dragging on, and then we went over there and kicked ass, and we won the war for them. It's like, we certainly contributed. But it was that thing that we were piling on to an already pretty formidable force, and it was like it helped start the snowball, but not at no cost to us. It's not like we waltzed over there and were like dancing around their bullets.
Again, there's like no squeaky clean fucking. Yep, we went in there and only like lost 2 people. We
only lost Johnson, and that was to the shits.
And Johnson, he sucked. he was really bad. He fucking couldn't reload.
Apparently, like half of our deaths in World War I were from Spanish flu. So that's real good. We were just talking before the show about being sick. And like, imagine going to war and being like, I hope I make it out alive. It's like, no, you're going to die, but from a slow, well, probably not that slow, but from being sick.
I just imagine like shitting your pants, jumping out of the trench every time.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah, World War I was not... It wasn't the fun war. World War II, you got to run around like video games and like flamethrower stuff and whatever. I assume. I think that's how it worked.
The KD ratio was invented in World War II.
World War I had those damn trenches, and that was not a party for anybody, except that Christmas Day story that you always hear about, the ceasefire. I would be
the shithead who ruined that. I'd be like, they're right here. They don't have their guns. Get them.
You're the guy that a day before went into the woods because you had the shits, because that's common. So you
come back and like, sir, it's a crowd.
I'm laughing and coughing from my wheezy lungs at the same time. Because I'm picturing this. We were just talking, and everybody's talking right now about the I Think You Should Leave, because season 3 just came out, and I can totally see Tim Robbins' character like that, where he comes back, is like, "Sir, they're unarmed," and he just opens fire.
Sir, we just won the war. Tell them to get down.
Shouldn't be that funny, but I can't breathe.
All right. Well.
Anyway,
let's wrap this up. So
we'll end this with Wheezy and the belch.
As funny as that is, it's not the joke you die from, Steve. It's not your time.
No.
So yeah, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with the show.
Something.
More show.
Like it or not.
Like it or not.
Assholes.